I think it's just because I look really red. Hello,
My
and
husband says that I'm white, but not as white as I am on video, and we can't figure out why.
I just think it's light. Hello and welcome everybody to this lovely broadcast today with Cindy J. Ignore us just talking about looking red, white, pink, and all the other shades as we were waiting to go live there. It is a hot day, isn't it? Is everybody else looking a bit pink, red, white? What colour are you feeling? Shove it in the comments and let me know. Guys, it is lovely and fantastic to have you join us. I'm so excited to introduce my guest today, Cindy J, because she is fantastic and she is the Visibility Wiz. Cindy, I'm going to let you introduce yourself because I will just fangirl and geek out on far too much.
Thank you. And it's a pleasure being here, Lindsay. As Lindsay said, I'm Cindy J. I'm known as the Visibility Wiz, and I help people get seen by their ideal audience, get known as a trusted and in-demand expert, and get clients. I have my whole life, I was a born entrepreneur. When I was 10 years old, I sort of had my first business. I lived in close to the Los Angeles riverbed, and there was a park on one side, there was a golf course on the other side of the riverbed. So I used to go and play in the riverbed and collect all the golf balls that the golfers had lost. And then I would take them home and clean them and take them back to the golf course and resell them to the golfers. So I had my own little business going on as 10 years old.
That is amazing. I love it.
And I always was into something. I always had some sort of business. And whenever the internet came along, I knew that that was like really the business for me. I started my first online business in 2001, selling other people's stuff. And over the years, I evolved and I found coaching in 2009. And then that's whenever I really found my love and my passion, and I think my purpose. Definitely coaching people. And I started out as a divorce coach, helping women through the grief of divorce. And I was able to leave my day job within 2 years. And what happened when I started going to, well, I live in a very remote area. Like I'm literally, there's 24,000 people in this town, and I'm 90 miles from any other town. So therefore, to speak while I was working 50 hours a week didn't make sense. And so I had to utilize all of my online knowledge to get seen, get known, and get clients. So after I left my job and I started going to networking events, coaches would start coming up to me and going, hey, how did you get on Having to Post Live? How did you get on eHarmony? How did you get on Prevention? How did you get on Fox? How did you get on the homepage of MSN? Can you show me how? And so I sort of started coaching other coaches with visibility based on what I had done for myself. And then in 2017, I decided to take the visibility part full time and leave the divorce part.
And that's really interesting that you did all of that and you worked it out for yourself first and then moved on to teaching it. And I think people often forget when they see coaches out there and, you know, they think, oh, they knew it overnight. But sometimes you have to go through, don't you, and learn that process.
Yeah, just my values. I know one of my first coaches, she taught me, I always say, what not to do. She used to yell at me all the time because she wanted me to be a business coach. And it goes against my values. I can never teach anything or do anything that goes against my core values. Mm-hmm. And that is, I could not teach something that I had not already done.
And this is the thing, isn't it? I think it's finding things that work for you. I mean, I'm the same. I'm very, very, it's got to go with my ethics. It's got to go with my values. And if it doesn't, then hell or high water, there's no way you can convince me otherwise. I had a client say to me, a couple of months back now, it's just after I'd kind of got over COVID and I was really sick still. And, you know, she said to me, I finally updated my branding and I'm finally leveling up my audience. And she said, I've got this new coach. She's managed to push me into doing this. I said, why didn't you tell me? I said, well, because at the time, you weren't ready to hear that. And sometimes it's a case of you have to be ready to receive that information, to process it, because we all have to kind of follow our paths, don't we? And we all have to step into things at the right time, I think. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I agree. It is definitely timing. You have to be ready for the next step. But I see also sort of the opposite sometimes where people are following their coaches, doing all this stuff that whenever it's not really aligned with them, because we have to be aligned mentally, physically, and in our hearts and souls whenever we do something, and that's when we're going to find the success. And that's whenever, more than the success, it's the happiness. I always ask, did you go into business to be miserable? And if you're sitting there doing something that goes against your grain, doing something that your coach is telling you to do because you believe that you have to follow them step by step, exactly, it's not going to work. And as you said, we're all at different stages. You wouldn't give a kindergartner a 12th grade test. And it's the same thing with our clients. We know, when we know where they are, we have to guide them so they can go to the next level and the next level.
And this is the thing as well, isn't it? It's making sure that things are in alignment. When it comes to any form of visibility, I think it becomes really apparent when things are not quite in alignment. They're not quite clicking the way it should. And again, like you said, it's that, is it right for you right now? And that's the other side of things as well, I think. I mean, in terms of your journey, obviously, from when you made the switch over to business coach, what did your clients think? When you suddenly stepped into this light of being, I am the Visibility Wiz, what did people think? How did that reaction go down?
I actually had a couple of divorce clients that sort of came with me that started their own business. But it really wasn't that difficult. I mean, I kept the clients that I had. I still have one client that she works with me on and off just about after divorce stuff. So it's not, I didn't per se ditch them. I just stopped my email list. So naturally, whenever you stop doing that, you're not going to be targeting that audience. A lot of it was too, one of the first things I have all of my clients do is really think of your own personal core message or your own mission. What is it? Because once you figure that out, and everything in your business, you ask, does this align with that? Because had I done that with divorce, what I really loved doing was helping people go through the grief of the divorce. You go through all the 5 grieving stages, just like if somebody died, but you don't have the same type of support. And I really enjoyed doing that and helping people go from grief to a happy life. But people started inviting me to all of these dating summits and dating radio shows and dating podcasts. And so I would say probably by the time I left, 60 or 70% of my list were actually people who wanted dating advice. And I never wanted to be a dating coach. So it wasn't that difficult because of that. And now, as far as a lot of my colleagues were concerned, they thought that it was great because they're all like, you are so good at that. This is perfect for you. So I had a lot of cheers from my colleagues.
And it's interesting there that, you're saying about getting that kind of audience full of dating advice, people. And I think this, again, it comes back to, doesn't it, this visibility. When we start getting visible, it's making sure the opportunity is really aligned when you say yes to it. Because if you don't, you end up flooding your list and getting all these things that you don't really want to step into, isn't it, really?
Right. And, you was talking earlier just about being aligned and being ready. And I had one client once, she told me, she goes, I absolutely hate Facebook, but I know that I have to do Facebook. And I'm like, no. So many people believe they have to do all of these things to be visible. And you don't have to do Facebook to be visible. You don't even have to do social media to be visible. And people don't realize that. They think, hey, I love social media. I utilize it, but it's not.
I think somebody just dropped a cup there in shock at, you don't have to use social media to be visible.
Yeah, exactly. And there are other ways to be visible, and people don't think that. One thing that I think is very overlooked, and it's been utilized for years, and it's actually one of the 2 things that catapulted my divorce business. Number 1 is I hosted a summit. And so you don't need social media to be in a summit or to host a summit. You don't need social media to be in a giveaway or host a giveaway. And so but the summit. And the second thing that I did was I wrote tons and tons and tons of guest blogging posts. And a lot of people, what they do whenever they start doing blog posts for other people, they're like, oh, Lindsay, hey, I really like you. Can I, and I like what you do. Can I write a guest post for you? And you're like, well, sure, Cindy J. However, even though our audience might be aligned, I really don't know what your stats are on your website. I don't know if you are ranking high with these different keywords. So what I do, and the way I train my clients, is to go to Google, search the keywords that you want to be found for, look at the top 10 that show up in Google, and then check them to see if they accept guest posts. And if they do, follow their guidelines and pitch to them. Because if they're already in the top 10, they have a very good audience. They're very big. They've been around for a while. And what happens is if somebody like eHarmony. Okay, so whenever I was in eHarmony, really they picked me up. They syndicated me, I think, from Huffington Post. But if somebody would visit my website from one of these articles that I wrote out there, they would stay on my website a lot longer than if they just came from Google itself. So if they go to Google and they find me, they stayed on maybe 1 minute. If they went to Google and found your website and then my article on your website, they stayed on my website about 5 minutes. And that's because your readers know and like and trust you. So I automatically get that expert status because I'm on your post. So it's word of mouth, which has been around since the beginning of time. And also one thing about this is not a one-time forget it whenever you're writing guest posts. If you do a summit, it's all big whenever it is, but a year from now, people aren't going to know about it. It's the same with a giveaway. And social media posts, with the exception of Pinterest, if you tweet or you put a Facebook post out there today, nobody's going to see it 30 days from now. And like I said, with any of the social media except for Pinterest, Pinterest is the best one for longevity. But with that,
I love Pinterest.
You love Pinterest?
I love Pinterest. I was just going to interrupt you to say, I think it's such a shame because you see these beautifully crafted posts, spewing over on Facebook, and then you kind of think, well, why have you just lost? You kind of just lost it into the ether. It's not doing anything. I always think everyone should up their game and at least be using Pinterest to drive traffic and to really bring people home.
Yeah. And then even with the articles, if you can have a bio, like I would never say visit cindyjholbrook.com. I would say go visit visibilitychecklist.com and download your free visibility checklist. That's what's going to be in my bio, which is, again, to get them on my list. The very first guest post that I wrote in 2008 got because I was doing another business at that time. I wasn't coaching, but that was the first guest post I wrote. I got 500 opt-ins in the first day to my list. Now, even whenever I closed that website down in 2014, I was still getting like 100 opt-ins per month from that article. So it's a long game. It's not a do it once and end. And it's really a dying art. A lot of people aren't thinking, hey, let's go. A lot of people think, oh, I have to do Facebook. I have to do Facebook Live. And, these are great. And I love Facebook. It's one of my favorite social media channels. But it's just a tool. And you need to utilize different tools in your toolbox. For instance, I have a program, Convert Content to Clients, where I teach people how to take one 500-word article they wrote and create over 50 pieces of social media posts. And again, this way you're promoting yourself. You're not just sharing a lot of quotes or whatever that really people aren't that interested in.
And this is the thing, isn't it? So many people are out there and overwhelmed, and it's like, how do I do this stuff? What do I do? And actually, they've already got the content there. It's just about creating a kind of slice and dice distribution plan with the existing content instead of trying to regurgitate what they see elsewhere, isn't it, really?
Exactly. And it's always being true to you, whatever you feel your truth. I like telling people, I said, you want to get outrageously confident. And so outrageous confidence. Outrageous means that you're bold. It's doing something bold. And to me, confidence is simply being willing to do something you're afraid of, or being willing to do something you've never done before. And because we're never going to be confident in anything until we do it. But whenever you combine those two and you really start letting your personality out, like maybe doing a Facebook Live without makeup on, or some men, showing their bald spots, or there's all different types of things. And it is outrageous because you're being bold whenever you take that step. I was wearing this sweater at a conference I was at. My roommate told me that this sweater makes me look really fat and frumpy, and I should never, ever, ever wear it outside. So something in my brain decided to accept this. So after that, for like a couple of years, I never wore that sweater outside. I would just wear it around my house. One day I had to go run some errands, and I just had the sweater on. So I just left my sweater on. And at 2 different stores, somebody stopped me and told me how beautiful I was and how beautiful the sweater was. And I thought, why was I accepting what that person told me, what one person's opinion? And so to me, and this was a bold move, I had my husband take a picture of me in this sweater, and I sent it to my email list. So whenever you do something like this, it is like bold, and it's putting yourself out there, but it helps you grow your confidence to truly be seen as who you are versus who you think they want you to be, or trying to be perfect. My first videos, really, I was like, my name is they were so bad. But I knew that I wanted to do video, so I practiced. And people, again, they think, oh, you're natural. I go, believe me, I was not a natural at the beginning.
That reminds me of the first time I tried Periscope. And I still remember the fact that I filmed a good proportion of my curtain, because obviously Periscope, you've got to flick it around if you're doing it on your device. Or you certainly did at the time. I've not done Periscope for a while. And I was just like, oh, crap. Everyone's just seen my curtain. And that's not what we want. But you have to be willing to put yourself out there and accept you've made a mistake, or you might make mistakes, in order to kind of get ahead, don't you? You can't just kind of say, oh, I'm just going to play it safe. You've got to be willing to take the risk, haven't you, really? Right.
Exactly.
I mean, I interviewed Mike Michalowicz last night, and everyone on my email list, everyone who's watching will no doubt know, I do slightly teeny tiny, like huge, have a fangirl about Mike, and just how he processes all these high level thinking elements about business into this teeny tiny, really simplistic structure that kind of leaves you going, oh, why didn't I think of that? And, at the very end, he was telling me about his new book, not the one that's just launched, the one he's now writing that's going to launch in about 18 months, 2 years. I was like, wow, this is amazing. You guys will all get to see it, by the way, once we've got that edited up, because there was a big crash noise halfway through. But I just saw an opportunity, because he's like, oh, it's about how you create such an impact that you're so divisive and so disruptive by being so bold and confident, right, that you just kind of, people have to stop and decide if they like you or they hate you, like the Marmite effect. So I immediately said, oh, and I thought, you've got to have confidence to take opportunity, haven't you? So for me, I just said, well, Mike, I've got something coming up. I'm going to pitch you. And I pitched him as soon as we finished recording for working with him and testing out his new stuff, thinking, I came away thinking he's probably going to think she's really cheesy, but I saw an opportunity and I went for it. And I think that's so much about business. It's so much about what you've been doing now. If you see an opportunity to guest post with those higher level people who are coming up for SEO, they are coming up for traffic, right, and seizing it, because if you don't really get anywhere new, do you?
And, a lot of people, they say it's confidence now. In 2007, I was doing a lot of affiliate marketing. I was actually utilizing Google Ads, and I had a lucrative business until the Google slap killed me overnight whenever Google changed its algorithm. And that's one thing, too, why I tell people, like, you don't want to just depend on Facebook. So many people, I don't need a list. I have a Facebook group. I'm like, yes, you need a list, because if Facebook changes, you can die overnight. I experienced it, and it's not fun with Google, and it can happen even with Facebook. But when I was doing this, I went to this event and I wasn't feeling good. I just had some dental work done. And I really couldn't even eat that much and wasn't feeling super good. Didn't know anybody there. So at lunch, I was like thinking, I just didn't want to eat by myself. And so I seen this guy that I had been following, and I knew he was like one of the speakers at the event. And he had a group of people with him, which I thought was his groupies, for lack of a better word, right? His fans.
Yeah.
And so I said, hey, do you care if I join you? I won't say anything. I just don't want to eat alone. So do you mind if I join you? And he's like, sure, sit down and join us. I wound up having lunch with all of the speakers of the event. So I was there feeling really small with all of these self-made millionaires that were really into their game. But one of them had told me, they said, you are going to succeed. There's no doubt in my mind that because not too many people would have had the gumption to ask us to sit with them, even though I didn't know at the time. But those words and listening to them speak, how they speak different, they spoke a different language. And at events, people are afraid to go to the speakers. I'm like, I like to go hang out at the bar, and I don't drink. I hate drinking. This was really hard for me at first to start doing this because, but it was funny because I would go at the bars, I will just get a Coke, and I'll just sit there and I'll like hang out because that's where all the speakers are. They're going to be at that bar, and you sit there and you just hang out with them. They will start talking to you. You don't have to say a thing. They will start talking to you. And what this does too is this gets your name out there. They know who you are. And then when you are promoting something and or you need something from them, they are going to be more likely to say yes because they know who you are. They're not going to say yes. They get, some of these people get like, somebody told me they get like 500 to 1,000 emails a day requesting them to promote something or do something. And if they don't know who you are, they're not going to do it. Also, be on their Facebook groups, be in their Pinterest, be in their Twitter, be on their LinkedIn, and talk to them. Share their stuff. If you go and you share somebody's stuff, they're going to notice you. You go and you shared Lindsay's thing. Lindsay's going to say, wow, Mary Jones just shared my thing. Yeah. And so you're going to remember that name. And this is one of the ways to get known by the influencers. It's really not that hard. And they really, but too many people think, oh, I'm down here and they're up here, so they won't talk to me. But that's not true at all. And it's just you saying, just letting yourself know who they are. Naturally, you don't want to go up to them and say, hey, will you promote my product? Or, but let them know who you are.
It's just connecting, isn't it? I mean,
and these are things too, again, with being visible without using social media.
Precisely. And I think we're such kindred spirits in that sense, because you're telling that tale and it's reminding me, last year, I'm one of those extroverted introverts. I love talking to people like we are now. But I can't do more than 2 or 3 of these a day because I'm just like, can't do that. Now, last year, a couple of my accountability buddies here in the UK challenged me to actually go see people in person. I was like, fancy this. So I went to an event last November. I didn't know anybody that was going, as far as I was aware.
Right.
And it turned out there were 3 people there that I'd met in a bar once and briefly kind of recognized the faces of, and that was it. And it turned out that I was looking around thinking, where's all the speakers, who's speaking? And I just kept going and saying to random people, are you part of the event? Can I sit with you? And I just go sit with them. And as soon as we got into the conference room, I just kind of found the speakers table with all the speakers sitting around getting mic'd up, and went, I don't know where to sit, can I just sit here? I just kind of did that. I'm a bit blonde, I'm a bit dozy. And they're like, yeah, just sit down. So I just sat with them, having a good old natter. And, we went out for coffee, we were chatting. One of the speakers nearly missed his slot on stage because he was too busy having a coffee with me in a different zone, completely somewhere else. And it's that just hanging out, talking to people and just building that relationship.
Right.
And just remembering that people, everybody writes their nails emailing somebody that they don't know. Like yesterday with Mike, I was like, fangirl, because I've adored his books for long enough and he knows this. I always tell him I'm a fangirl. And it's having that dialogue where you're building that conversation with somebody over a long period of time. I think it's just remembering that people are human. They are only ever human. And if it helps anybody, next time for those people watching, next time you have to pitch anybody who you think is an influencer, you think is somebody who is an expert that's higher than you on the ladder and you're a little bit nerve-wracking, just think of this little quick story, which is when I was in film, there was an actor that I was like, oh, hello, fangirl. Obviously I fangirl a lot. Like, oh. And I was talking to him and he literally, if you could have laughed, Cindy, he literally just stripped off in front of me because he'd finished his scene, wanted to get the train to head back to the city, and he needed to get changed and there was no wardrobe department on hand. So he literally just stripped off, got changed in front of me as I'm talking to him, and I'm going, okay, that's we're obviously comfortable. You're not different to me whatsoever. You are literally the same person. It's if you are okay doing that with me and you feel that comfortable, then I'm okay then being that comfortable with you and saying, can you now sign all of this stuff for me? Because I was fangirling. And it was just the fact that it's always that silly little thing has always stuck with me, because I think, okay, if no matter who you are, no matter whether you are this big top A-list kind of actor or you are the little guy, if you are able to do things like that, then everybody's able to do that. Nobody is this kind of God prospect that we all kind of build them up to be in our minds when we're trying to reach out and connect with people. And I think that's a really important kind of takeaway.
Yeah, we put people on levels whenever we are all equal. When I was in my early 20s, I waitressed, and I lived in a small town, but I waitressed, and Chuck Norris's mother lived in that town. So every time Chuck Norris came to visit his mother, they would always go to the restaurant that I worked at. And so I waited on this guy so many times, like the nicest man you'd ever meet. But it's very, very interesting. Again, he was just a person. And this was like almost during the height of his career, whenever he had the TV show going on. I can't even think of the name of his TV show, but
no, me neither. I'm just trying to think.
But he was, it was really popular right then, and so he was very, very well known. But he's just was a person, and I mean, we were trained to keep other people away from him, like other guests in there, and we weren't allowed to go to his table unless we were the wait staff, or unless the wait staff had asked us to help them, because they didn't want him to be bombarded with people. But it was just a fun experience talking with him, and he was so down to earth. And when you start meeting the so-called big wigs in the coaching industry, it's the same thing. They are down to earth. They're willing to talk to you. I remember at an event, my podcast, there's an event that I go to where people can pitch to the sharks. They can pitch to the big people. You have to, there's only 5 people are allowed to, and so there's a process to go through for you to be one of the 5 to do it. And so when I went to this event, I thought, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask all the sharks if they will be a guest on my podcast. If they say yes, I'll start it. If they say no, I won't. This was my whole thing. So some of the sharks I knew fairly well, which I didn't have a hard time asking. And out of the 10 people, all of them said yes. And I think 7 of them actually was on my show. But I had walked up, Justin Livingston, I seen him walking the hall. So I sort of grabbed his arm and I go, hey, Justin. I knew him from not Adam, literally. I just knew who he was, but he didn't know my name. I had never in any way really communicated with him. But I told him that I was doing this podcast, and also because I threw in these other names, I said Christian Michelson and Gina Gavellini already said yes, right? The other sharks. So I had that leverage whenever I went to him, and he said yes. But it was really interesting because as I did this, there's this other girl who she was like, I was so afraid to talk with you, Justin. I'm in one of your programs and I'm really confused and I have these questions. But whenever I seen Cindy, how nice you were to Cindy, I thought, what the heck? And I was like, how sweet was that? And I said, Justin, so naturally, I just stopped what I was doing and said, hey, I'll contact you and let him work with this girl who was actually a paying client of his that was terrified of him. I'm like, and Justin he's really a nice guy, but it's interesting whenever you, again, that was something bold that I did whenever I say, do be outrageously confident, is that was something bold. Yeah. And really and truly, if he would have said no, I wouldn't have lost anything. But I got a yes from him. And also me being bold helped somebody else.
Yeah. It's just finding the opportunity and just saying, I'm just going to go for it.
Yes.
And kind of hang the consequences, because what's the worst that could happen? And I got this into my head a few years ago to just always say to myself, because, you know, we sometimes do things that do make us feel uncomfortable, but that's good. It's healthy, particularly when we're doing marketing. And I just always say, what's the worst that's going to happen? Are they going to come to my house and stand at the end of my bed and laugh at me for the next however many years? Right. But if it does that, by the way, I'll probably freak out. But that is what is the worst that could happen? And, you know, I look back and whenever I kind of panic, obviously, I always think of this actor, but the other thing I always think of is, you know, I was very wet behind the ears the first time I ever had to go to Cannes to pitch a film. And I was like, oh, you know, I didn't even realize I'd been sent in the second week. It was party week. No film deals I'd done in party week. And I was, you know, we're in the film de marché and I see Lionsgate. And I'm like, oh, they've got an opening. So I strolled in there and started kind of chatting away, pitching for the fact that I wanted a slot to pitch the big guys.
Right.
And they were just like, okay, yeah, sure. Because they're just, and the girl said to me the next day when I got talking to her, having realized what I'd just done, she went, it's the fact that you just waltzed in, which is, I saw you walk across the room, you had purpose, and you just waltzed in and just said, yeah, this is me, this is what I'm doing, this is what I've come to prepare. Right. Can I pitch? And she's like, how was I going to say no? She went, it's so funny the amount of people that hover outside the kind of booth area, and don't ever kind of come in because they're afraid of pitching. And I was just like,
right,
you're just another person. You're just somebody I can talk to. You're going to say yes or no, and that's it. And it's just finding that opportunity. I mean, that one with Justin, wow.
Right.
I mean, I presume he definitely came on the podcast then.
Yes, yeah, he was one of my first guests. And two, I think even like you going and making the pitch whenever you weren't supposed to. Number one, that is being bold, but a couple different things about even visibility and connecting with the other people. A lot of people, they're afraid to be visible because they're afraid of making that fatal mistake. So they don't take that bold action because they're afraid of making a fatal mistake. In 2012, so I'd been a divorce coach for a little while, I had written an article about friends with benefits after a divorce. And Huffington Post liked this, and Huffington Post invited me to be on a panel of experts talking about friends with benefits. And so I was really nervous. This was like one of my first video things. And I showed you how I did video. I was really nervous. And then I'm talking and I wasn't articulating really what my message was. My message was, I tell my clients that it's better to have a friend with benefits than to have multiple one-night stands. At that time, I had one client who she was actually having 3 or 4 one-night stands each and every week. And I had another client that had a friend with benefits. And I seen how both of those was affecting them mentally, which is what prompted this thing. Well, because of my nervousness and not articulating my message, Huffington Post, whenever they publicized this video, and this was their whole marketing thing. Certified divorce coach Cindy Holbrook tells all of her clients to find a friend with benefits. And I said, oh my God, I'm over. No. I mean, to be misquoted by Huffington Post, right? No. And I was like devastated. I seen that and I cried. I turned my computer off. I went and I stayed in bed for 3 days, literally. I
Oh,
was like, I'm going to have to go back to work in social services because my career as a coach is over.
oh dear.
And whenever I crawled out of bed, right, after I had my pity party, and I started looking, I mean, I did have a lot of hate mail, but I also had a lot of love mail.
Mhm.
And I got lots of clients from that interview. Now, had I stayed in bed, hid under the covers, that would have been the fatal mistake. Them misquoting me was not a fatal mistake. So the only way anything can ever be a fatal mistake is if you choose it to be, if you allow it to be.
Yeah.
Because regardless how you're misquoted, what happens, if you pick yourself up and you keep moving on, you can succeed.
I feel like we now need to retitle a stream. No, Cindy did not tell all her clients to do that. The Visibility Wizard's greatest mistake was not to say that.
It was really, yeah, it was very not so much fun. But
this is the thing, we all make mistakes, but it's how we bounce back from them. And the art of getting visible,
yeah,
it's an art and a science all kind of rolled into one, isn't it? It's something where you can make mistakes and just being okay with it's okay.
it's okay.
Get up, roll with it, look at the optics, find a positive and follow the positive, isn't it, really?
And I think too, being completely honest with your community, in Zoom, you have your main room number, but also you can create different numbers for people to log in, different room numbers. And so when I had created this webinar, it was one of the first times I did this, I created a different number. And so at the time of the webinar, I had forgot about it. So I went into my main room and I'm waiting and waiting. And I'm like, there's nobody here. How come nobody's showing for this webinar? Like I sat there for 30 minutes with this webinar on in that room waiting for people to show up. I'm like, well, that's odd. I guess nobody's showing up. So I turned it off. I go look at my email. All these people. Where were you? We were there. So
you were very patient to wait 30 minutes.
I screwed up. I went to the wrong room, and so whenever you admit that, whenever you try to appear to be perfect, which is what a lot of visibility fears do to you, you're afraid of making a mistake. You're afraid of being a laughing stock. You're afraid of the trolls. You're afraid of being rejected. You have all these fears, which keeps you from being visible. But in essence, you're sort of trying to be perfect. And whenever you let go of that perfect persona and people see that you're a real human, that's whenever they really start to love you, know you, like you, and trust you. Because nobody likes somebody who's perfect. So whenever you own up to your mistakes, that really builds trust in your community.
And it does, doesn't it? It's just being able to say, hold up, I did something wrong. I mean, you were really good to wait 30 minutes. Literally, my cutoff rule is 5 minutes. I'm kind of looking at the clock thinking, oh, you're pushing it fine. 10 minutes, I'm like, that's it. You missed it. You're off now.
Yeah.
I had somebody do that to me the other day, and I was just like, no, I have kind of boundaries, because I think when we're being visible, we have to then kind of just own up to what we do and just say, look, this is me. This is what I do. This is my boundary area. And just accept as well that when we're visible, we don't have to just give all of ourselves all of the time. I mean, just because I know we're kind of running to time now, Cindy, do you want to kind of sum up your kind of advice in kind of like if people could take away 3 things from our conversation right now, what would that be?
Number 1, take some sort of bold action every day in your visibility. I think that's so imperative. Number 2, in visibility, do something that you really love. And it's not saying you can't practice at other things, but your main focus should be on what you love. If you hate video, don't focus on video. Don't focus on Facebook Lives. If you hate writing, don't focus on guest posting. If you hate Facebook, don't focus on Facebook, right? But do something you really love and choose that as your focus and give it your 100% focus for at least 3 months, because you will see results. And number 3, again, if you haven't tried to guest post, I would really recommend going out there and doing a Google search and finding. People ask, how did you get, on all these places? Well, it's because I asked. And a no is never going to hurt you. And a yes will always help you. And you have to go through so many no's to get to that yes. A quick story to follow up with the no's and yeses. When I was younger, I sold Tupperware. And I was sort of at a Tupperware party, so I had all these names of previous hosts and previous guests that I was calling. I locked myself up in my bedroom for like 3 hours calling all these people. I called over 100 people, and I came out of the living room, and I really felt sort of despondent. My husband says, well, how'd you do? I go, oh, I only got one party, because I felt devastated. I got one out of like 100, and I think I called 125 people. But that one party really catapulted my business. So you never know what that one yes is going to do. That one Tupperware party, and this was in the 80s, was like a $3,000 Tupperware party, and I got 10 parties booked off of that one party. So again, it really catapulted my Tupperware business at that time. So one yes from the right person can make a world of difference in your business.
And it's not judging either. When you get the yes, just stick with it and follow it through as well. Because just following on from that, I keep promising everyone I'm going to do kind of a live blue version of these types of conversations, because I definitely did not do Tupperware when I was cutting my teeth learning how to do sales. Over in the UK, we have something called Ann Summers, which is lingerie and adult things. Let's just call it that. And I was the little girl from Catholic school who did not know what any of this was, turned up for the first kind of event and went, ooh. And, I didn't know anybody that was definitely going to buy. So I remember being given an event like that to kind of go to after I'd finished my training. And I think they were just kind of trying to help me with that first event. And I turned up and there was a room full of 70 and 80-year-olds, and literally they didn't even want to get any of the products out. And it was like, okay. And I remember sitting there thinking, this is going to be my world's shortest career. This is definitely not going to pay the bills through university, because I'm obviously no good. Full stop. And now I remember sitting there thinking, why did I say yes to this? Why did I do that? And literally, I came away from there so despondent. I did get other party bookings, but I remember just thinking, well, if they're all like this, what is the point? Until I sat there, and we were talking about data just before we went live, and I sat there and I looked at all my sales, I looked at what happened and went, oh my gosh, I've just done over £3,000 in sales for people who didn't even literally want me to get anything out. I was there about 25 minutes. Right. And I remember going, wow. And it suddenly, and that's one of those things that stuck with me, because I remember thinking, I shouldn't have been despondent. I should have just trusted the process and just gone, it's okay. Yeses kind of come in all different forms, and silver linings come in all different forms as well. I think it's just finding and accepting that we just need to take that one yes and just follow it through. And if it doesn't work out the way we want, just see what that leads to, because that could lead to the door to getting into some higher level PR or getting into a different type of business. It's just following the opportunities, and as long as they're a good fit, making sure that they're, you're not going to end up with an audience full of people wanting dating advice if you do not want to give it. I think as long as you follow that, it really, really works. So, Cindy, I know we're coming to time now, so I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining me today. It has been fantastic having you on the show, and I know from our audience we've already got a couple of comments coming through. One is that, fantastic advice you're just giving there in your kind of little roundup. So thank you so much, Cindy.
Oh, it's definitely my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Lindsay.
You're more than welcome. For everybody watching, if you are watching live, please do put #live. If you're watching the replay, please put #replay. And if you're watching over on YouTube, please do not put any dodgy links. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Ciao for now.
Bye-bye.